Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our session on our Equity Action Plan. I'm David Nunez. I'm the head of school. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm here tonight to answer questions and to help facilitate the conversation. But Jordan's going to give us the introduction to the work that's been done and share some slides and things with us. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Jordan.
All right, cool. Thanks, David. My name is Jordan Samejima. I'm the Equity and Inclusion Facilitator here. I use he, him pronouns. This is my first year here at Great River. So I'm excited, that you guys were able to take time out of your day. I know it's super nice outside, and so I appreciate each and every one of you being here. And what I wanted this to be is an opportunity to just share the work that's being done right now, or the work that's been done, kind of where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going. And so that's what the next, hour-ish will be about. My presentation won't be that long, but we've got about an hour of allotted time to do a short presentation and then have some Q&A feedback time as well. So I will go ahead and share my screen here. Just give me one moment here. I'm just going to share a short presentation with each and every one of you.
Oh, I'll just add real quick too, Jordan, that just because there's both the webinar chat and there's also the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, it's a little easier for us to manage questions if you all in the audience use the Q&A. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says Q&A. And when you click on that, you should be able to submit, I can see my view, not your view, but you should be able to submit questions and we can sort through them. If you put it in the chat, that's fine too. It just is a little easier to have them all in one place. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A.
All right, perfect. Thanks, David. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit share here and let me know if everyone's able to see this slideshow. You able to see that, David?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I just have a quick presentation here just to go over, like I said, how we got here, where we currently are, and then where we're going. So how we got here. So some of you may remember, some of you may not be familiar with, Equity Alliance conducted an audit in the spring of 2022. And then that audit report was given to the admin team here at Great River in the fall of 2022, so the beginning of this school year. David, myself, along with Equity Alliance Minnesota, put together an Equity Action Plan Committee, and that consisted of myself, David, Equity Alliance Minnesota, parent representatives. We had some staff from Great River on the Equity Action Plan Committee as well. And we met periodically from the fall of 2022, and our last meeting concluded in February of 2023. So we met, for a significant amount of time, kind of hashing out, what was in the report, some of the, weaknesses that the audit report highlighted, and then also some of the strengths, some of the things that we do well here at Great River. A lot of this was information that had previously been known, previously had been expressed by, not only Great River families, but Great River staff. But it's just nice to have things, kind of putting pen to paper and having official documents that back up a lot of the feelings that, caregivers, students, and staff have been feeling over the last couple of years in regards to equity. And then we brought this draft, and I just want to emphasize that this is a rough draft, and you'll see that on the next slide here, that is a draft from February 17th, I believe. And we brought that to the staff at a professional development day in early March of this year. So just last month, and staff was able to give honest, open feedback. And, that feedback was highly valued. I think that that's something that's important when we're doing large initiative projects like this, that it is important to garner feedback from those that'll be affected. And so that's why we're all here tonight. So this is the Equity Action Plan rough draft that we came up with as a group. So you will see here on the left-hand side here, this is kind of the mission statement. So I'll go ahead and read through this really quick here. Great River School will urgently seek equity by translating emergent needs into ongoing action. Equity in our learning community means all members with marginalized identities are empowered to obtain what each individual needs based on personal definitions of need in order to have the opportunity to thrive according to personal definitions of thriving. Equity Action at Great River enhances our Montessori learning environment. And then you'll see down there at the bottom left-hand corner, we highlighted 3 key equity priorities. And this is in no order, but the first being curriculum, second one being community, and then the final one being professional development. And then you can see on the right-hand side here, these are some foundational equity values that we came up with as a group. And you can see that there's 6 of them there. The first one being Great River School acknowledges that systems of oppression both benefit students with privileged identities and harm students with marginalized identities. Great River School will take action. Great River School centers the experiences of community members with marginalized identities that are not centered under white supremacy culture. We will prioritize accountability from an equity lens. We will work to dismantle white supremacy culture in its many expressions, work which is the responsibility of members of the dominant culture. And then finally, we will rigorously examine our present systems of areas of inequality. And then you can see down at the bottom there, we have a definition for marginalized identities as well as white supremacy culture. Because we thought that it was important to put a definition for white supremacy culture in particular, because it has become such a, hot topic and term that's being used, and essentially being hijacked in different instances in our society nowadays. And so I thought that, it was important, our entire group did, to define white supremacy culture. So it's not a word that, can scare people off and not want us to engage in this work on a day-to-day basis. So that is essentially, how we got to this point here with this rough draft here. And I know it's a lot. And so let me just go to the final slide here, and then we can open up things for questions, for some dialogue. So the next steps in the process, first, we're starting with step 1 tonight, where we're gathering caregiver feedback. We're gathering student feedback this week as well, and then going into next week. And then we will take this feedback, the feedback we're getting from students, caregivers, and then staff as well, and we will bring that back to Equity Alliance Minnesota, where they will provide us with a final equity action plan. And then we will be submitting this to the school board for approval. And our goal, David, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but that is to get this to the school board at the end of the month, on the 26th for our school board meeting.
That's our goal. Yep.
So 2 weeks from today, essentially, we will get this to the school board for approval. And then over the summer, that work on the strategic plan will begin, where David will be heavily involved with that. But a lot of this work these action items in this equity action plan will guide our strategic plan work over the next number of years. And David, I don't know if you want to talk more to the strategic plan and how that fits there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the strategic plan is an initiative that the board has brought forward to me and charged me with as the head of school. We're going to be spending some time creating a new 5-year strategic plan over the course of the next, I would love to be done by the end of summer, but to be truthful, during the 2023 year, if we could be done in the fall, that's maybe a little more reasonable. But we'll be creating this strategic plan around a number of different areas, mandates that the board has directed us to write strategic goals in. And the idea, and part of the reason we've waited as long as we have on the strategic plan, part of the idea was to use this work, this equity action plan work, as a cornerstone for our strategic plan, as some of the guiding principles. The main areas of the strategic plan that we're going to be working on are equity, our community, academics, and financial stability for the school. So, and one of my visions for how the strategic plan will evolve as time goes on too is not to isolate equity in its own portion of the strategic plan, but to weave it throughout the strategic plan. Our last strategic plan, which is on the website if you're interested in taking a look at it, had an equity section to it, certainly, But I really am excited about the idea of including equity in each of the sections, and having equity really be the cornerstone of the plan in so many ways. So that is the very high level synopsis of what the strategic plan work will look like. I could also speak, or rather, I could have Jordan speak, because you know more than I do, about some of the feedback that we've gotten so far, perhaps.
Yes, so let me just go back a slide here. So some of the feedback that we got, especially from our guides, and our staff here at Great River, focuses on this light blue box here. Sorry, the statement, the equity statement here, where we're talking about obtaining what each individual needs based on personal definitions of need, in order to have the opportunity to thrive according to personal definitions of thriving. And so we just want to reiterate, a lot of the staff felt that it's important that, we still maintain, an educational and a school structure here. And I wholeheartedly believe that as well. And so we do want to have some parameters around that. So that was one, bit of feedback that was pretty consistent from the staff. Some other feedback that we received was, if you look at this document, we want this to be student facing as well. And obviously, this probably isn't the greatest document to have our elementary students read. We are a 1 through 12, school here. And so, we're going to work to create a document that can be, more visual, I guess, put in simpler terms, and can be understood by our elementary age students, especially, that grades 1 through 3, because we do want students to know they have rights, and that this equity action plan includes them as well, and that they're being represented in this. And then, other than that, some of the things that people mentioned is, we asked the question, which key equity priority is most important? And I would say overwhelmingly, it was community. A lot of people thought that if we do not have a healthy, thriving community, then we cannot get to, I guess, a healthy professional development and healthy curriculum practices as well. So those were, the three, I guess, major points of feedback that we received from our staff, and then, students as well, is that, like I said, we want to have some parameters and some boundaries around that equity statement on the left-hand side there. Communities, the top equity priority, and then having another document that is, suitable for our elementary age students.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. So I do want, we have a couple different things also to talk about. Like, I know this is a lot of information to throw at somebody all at once. And so one of the things we're doing is recording tonight's session. And so we are planning on sending out this recording to the community to take a look at. And along with that, there will be some questions that we're going to be asking the community. But before we get there, we wanted to open it up and say, are there questions in the audience tonight? So there are a number of people here listening in, and the Q&A, and let me open the chat as well. The Q&A and the chat are open if anybody has questions or comments about the development of this document. We'll give you a little bit of time. This is my teacher wait time. Okay, got a couple questions. Excellent. So first question, curious about when we'll see the tangible action steps. Excellent question. So the Equity Alliance Minnesota, who helped us create this document, specifically wanted the key priorities to be developed in conjunction with the leadership team at the school and in conjunction with the strategic plan. And so the idea around these key priorities is that we would have specific, tangible, measurable, SMART goals around curriculum, around community, and around professional development. And I'm actually doing another presentation on Thursday to the Student Experience Committee. If anyone is interested in coming, that's a board committee, so it's a public meeting. And that committee is, it happens at school, but I think there's a virtual component as well, if I remember right. So you can check it out on the school calendar. And that committee is going to be starting to take up the strategic planning work, which will involve the creation of those like concrete goals around those 3 key priorities. So that is coming, and that is coming hopefully relatively quickly. Specifically, the key action goals around equity would be one of my first priorities for doing with the strategic, for moving forward with the strategic plan. Then after that, focusing on some of the other areas once the equity section of the plan is really sort of shored up as a fundamental piece to the plan. I also have a question from Laura, which I will hand to Jordan. The question says, well, we would love to hear how you plan to get feedback from students.
Yeah, great question, Laura. So we have a survey, the same survey that you guys will be getting with a couple additional questions. That'll be going out tomorrow to adolescent students. And then we also have an in-person, I guess kind of informal town hall, lunch, chat type of deal going on next week, on Wednesday in particular, where students will be able to give some feedback in person if they'd like, and just to discuss the equity action plan. But, I want to kind of cater to them, right? Like, I know in person works for some people, but, we live in a digital age now. So the survey will go out tomorrow with just a QR code that'll be sent out to students. And then we'll have some flyers hung around the building as well, where they can access that and give their feedback. And I want that feedback to be continuous, because this is who it's affecting the most, I feel like, as our students, obviously. And so I really, really value their opinion and their feedback. So those will be 2 avenues that we'll use, is the digital survey and then an in-person, luncheon on Wednesday of next week.
Excellent. The next question is, will the SMART goals have an evaluation process? And so, yes, the goals that are embedded in the strategic plan will, I was just talking about this today with the board secretary, actually, we'll have a process by which they're presented to the board every month as a portion of the head of school report to the board, and then also as a yearly evaluation process that they'll, over the course of the 5 years that the strategic plan takes place over, they will be reviewed on an annual basis as a whole plan by the board of directors. And those are all public meetings, and anyone is certainly welcome to come to them. Another question here. And I think this is a really fair question. The question is, I'm not following the timeline. You've had this feedback from Equity Alliance for a year. We've known for longer that the equity is a big problem here, and the plan is to hopefully have a plan by the end of 2023. Do I have that right? Well, the goal is not necessarily to not take action till the end of 2023. I want to be clear about that. We are constantly like trying to reevaluate and evaluate and take action. One of the big steps we did this year, for example, was hiring Jordan in the equity and inclusion facilitator role and changing that role to be a member of the leadership team of the school, to have the voice, to have a voice on the leadership team that was specifically dedicated to giving us a perspective on equity. And so we are constantly sort of reevaluating and trying to add and change as a leadership team at the school. The strategic plan for the next 5 years is the plan that will not be completed likely until the fall of 2023. And the strategic plan, like I said, the purpose of this is to give guidance to me as the director of the school and to the board as the governing body of the school. And so that strategic plan will be revisited on a monthly basis and on an annual basis by the school board to make sure that some progress is being made, and how much, what that progress looks like, and where we're going with equity in particular. But it doesn't mean we're not doing work right now. It doesn't mean that we're waiting for this plan to be completed to do work on equity. And we're, for instance, also doing a lot of PD around equity, and have done some over the course of the year. So it continues to be an absolute priority to the leadership team of the school. Another question, I hope that answers your question, Sarah. How much time will discussion of white supremacy culture take away from reading, writing, and arithmetic? So I think, when it comes to curriculum evaluation, I would say that we do have key elements of our curriculum where we're talking with students about things like social justice. And we're using texts that are social justice focused texts. Excuse me. And also we continue to work on reading, writing, and math constantly and always at our school. And so it's always a balance. But, as a Montessori institution, we're dedicated to coming up with developing work with students that is engaging, that is real life, real experience type of work, that is work that is tied specifically to collaboration, and that is work that is specifically meaningful to students, and that is chosen by students. And so that often, not often, I would say, but it does certainly entail social justice related work as part of the curriculum that we do. And do we tie it all together? That's the work that we've been doing as a curriculum team this year in the adolescent, is how do we talk about curriculum across different subject areas? How do we talk about curriculum scope and sequence from, young students to old students to our oldest students, and how that sort of continuum of education occurs at Great River. And that's an ongoing project of the administrator, the leadership team, and the teachers and the guides in the building. So yes, there is talk about social justice work. I think that is, I think that, it is an element to who we are as a school, and certainly not the only work that we do, especially when it comes to like the IB program and the extreme rigor of the IB program at the higher levels of Great River. So how much of these plans informed by critical race theory? So, my understanding of critical race theory is that it has a lot, it's a specific theory that is taught at the college level when it comes to thinking about texts at the college level. And so do we talk about social justice, and do we talk about the rights of all individuals? Do we talk about have conversations in our classrooms that lead to inquiry related to social justice? We absolutely do. Are we teaching a theory surrounded by, like, I guess the word would be indoctrinating. Like, are we indoctrinating students to a theory around white supremacy culture and what those ideas mean? That's why we talked about how this document is so unapproachable to our younger students, because what we really want to talk about is that we're seeking equity urgently, and what does equity mean at our school, and not necessarily like, while the document talks about the foundational equity values at the school, those aren't necessarily, those are like statements of belief coming from staff and coming from the leadership team at the school, more than they are like statements around what is centered in the curriculum. Another question we have is, what can we as parents do right now to support this process for our school, and specifically our school community? Thank you. Great question. I think that one of the really helpful things that you could do would be to take a look at this presentation, take a look at, we're going to ask you guys for some direct feedback here at the end of the presentation, in the form of a survey. And I know you guys get surveyed a lot. And one of the questions I always get from survey questions is, where is this going and what is happening with this survey? Well, this survey very explicitly over the course of the next couple of days is going to give us feedback on this document that we take back to Equity Alliance Minnesota early next week. So it is a very short timeline on this survey that we're sending out that we'll be sharing with you tonight, and we will be sending out again with this presentation. But it is also an opportunity to offer some of this direct feedback, including some of the questions that you're asking right now. They're all good questions. And if you're concerned about the timeline on the process, if you're concerned about things going on in the document and how it impacts the curriculum at the school, all of these are good questions to be asking, and certainly can be shared with us through this survey at the end of the night as well. So I think taking some time to look at the document, taking some time to the Equity Action Plan, which we will be sending out, and taking some time to take a look at the survey questions that Jordan has put together would be very helpful to us right now. I've got a couple more questions. So is increasing the BIPOC student and educator staff in the GRS part of the SMART goals? So I believe that when we talk about community, you know, I already have some sort of ideas that I have around like curriculum evaluation that I think could fit into a SMART goal related to curriculum. Professional development around like what staff professional development looks like. I also have some ideas around the community portion of the Equity Action Plan. And I think part of that should be like the continued recruitment and retention of staff of color and students of color in our community. And so, you know, how do we go about doing that is going to be the continued conversation that we've been having for quite a while. But I do think that increasing BIPOC student and staff numbers at the school has been something that the school has been talking about for quite a long time. So we will continue to, and I think it will be part of the SMART goals. Another question. So why is it necessary to educate my Caucasian 13-year-old by framing the issue as white supremacy culture? It's a really good question. White supremacy culture as a phrase is being used, as Jordan kind of said, is being used in a number of different ways. And that's why we wanted to offer a definition on the document that it really has to do with, as it says in the document, an invisible set of norms, values, tendencies, expectations, emphases, focuses on attention, practices, processes, and products that perpetuate white supremacy. So it is a term that a number of people have been talking about and writing about for quite a long time. Are we concerned about how it will be interpreted by, as I interpret your question, are we concerned about how it will be interpreted by our white students? I personally think that, you know, the way that we go about teaching social justice and the way we go about teaching and supporting our students to be, you know, active participants in justice and making a more just world and a more fair world for everyone is really how it is approached. So when we talk about equity in our learning community, we're talking about you know, people receiving what they need as they are able to define those needs themselves. It's a very progressive statement. And that doesn't not hold true for white students. It just looks different for white students because we acknowledge that, you know, there are systems of oppression in our world. There are inherent implicit biases in our world today, and that we have to deal with those as you know, whatever our background is. So I hope that answers your question. It is not a simple question to answer, but I think that the way that we talk about inclusivity, that the way that we talk about justice, that the way that we talk about building a community where every voice is valued in the community is really fundamentally what's at the foundation of this work. Do you want to add anything to any of my answers, Jordan? I've just been talking and talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, all great questions. And you know, you hit the nail on the head on a lot of them. And I just want to reiterate that like this is what we're looking for, is for honest, opinions and feedback from the community and from you guys as stakeholders. So, there's never a question that's too tough or that, we will shy away from answering. So, I just appreciate the honest and open feedback, because I think this is how we get to a more inclusive environment here at Great River. And so, there's a lot of education, because if I'm going to be honest, we've had staff members feel uncomfortable with the term white supremacy culture. And so, like I said, from my viewpoint, from my vantage point, it is a term that has been, essentially, hijacked, at times, and can have a different meaning than what we're looking to get across here at Great River. And so it's not, being used to, demean or indoctrinate students or anything like that. It's just, what we feel is a pretty progressive and honest statement. And so the education will continue around the term, like David had mentioned. And I don't think that that's something that we want to shy away from when we're talking about trying to, dismantle some of these systems of oppression that we see, not only here at Great River, but throughout our society, if I'm being, totally honest.
So would you like to share the survey opportunity now that it was a nice segue now that we're talking about the survey specifically?
Yes, I can go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and share that. So this is the QR code. I will also, let me just get the link pulled up here, because I have a link as well that I can share in the chat here. But this is the QR code. So you can scan this QR code right from your phone, and it'll pull up the survey that you can fill out. And this will be an opportunity for you to go ahead and, give some more honest and open feedback if you choose to do so. And then I will share the direct link as well, for those of you that would prefer to use the direct link. So just give me 1 second here and I'll go ahead and get that shared out as well, just in the chat here. All right. And David, can you see that link that I sent through the chat there?
Let me double check here. I've got too many tabs open at the moment. So host to panelists. Yes, I believe that the form link is available in the chat, and then also available here as part of the QR code. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So those of you who are watching the presentation tonight, who are not live and not present, is available either way to form to take a look at. And we will, for those of you who are here tonight, as I said, we'll be sharing this document with the community. We'll be sharing this slideshow with the community, the recording of tonight's presentation with the community, and trying to get the feedback that we can get from the community. So that is one of our big goals of this evening's time together. So there is another question about the term white supremacy culture and is it being used with students? So I am not personally aware of times that is being used in the curriculum, but that I can't promise that it hasn't ever been used in the curriculum as a phrase. But I have not been in a classroom where it has been used in the curriculum in my time at Great River. So yeah. Again, part of the big concern about this document that was brought by staff was, do we need to write something different that is accessible to students? And so that is one of the big pieces of feedback that we've taken from staff. If we're going to write about, all voices being heard and our community being an inclusive one, how do we write about that for our young students so that they can understand that we want to have all the voices in the room be heard and what that means. So, for example, yeah. Okay. Well, we will, if there's any other questions, I can stay on for a few minutes. And also we will be wrapping up the recording so that people who are not here tonight can finish the recording relatively quickly and get to the survey here. So I'm going to pause the recording as we move forward. Thank you for those of you who are watching this presentation, even if you weren't able to attend the presentation tonight. We appreciate all of the work that you're doing and all of the important opinions that we're looking forward to reading as part of the survey. So thank you all.